Hello and a very warm welcome to PTV World News. With the news at this hour, I am Fiza Sajava.
And I am Jawate Hami. Let's begin with the headlines.
Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif assures to provide necessary funds to equip police with the latest gadgets and training techniques. He stresses that there should be a forensic lab in the capital city besides its counter-terrorism department should be a role model for the whole country.
Interior Minister Rana Sanaullah makes it clear that no mob would be allowed to challenge the state's threat and every possible step would be taken to protect the life and the property of the people. He says red zone is the red line and no mass gathering will be allowed in this area.
Nation rejects the call for bloody march by refusing to become a slave to the foreign-funded person who violated the constitution. Information Minister Maryam Aurangzeb says Pakistan's youth could not become the protectors of the system of Tosha Khana thief Farah Gogi and Bushra Bibi.
PDI leader Faisal Wada says that time and again he told his leader Imran Khan that few elements are misleading him to direction other than his ideology he pursued for 26 years. He says this policy led to confrontation with the institutions and caused loss to the country.
The Federal Investigation Agency summons the former Foreign Minister and PTI Vice Chairman Shah Mahmood Qureshi on 1st of November to hold inquiry into Cypher controversy.
Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif reviews rehabilitation of flood victims. He directs the authorities concerned to use all available resources on an emergency basis for the rehabilitation of the flood victims.
Pakistan needs over $16 billion for rehabilitation and reconstruction in a resilient way to support the country's adaptation to climate change and overall resilience of the country to future climate shocks.
Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is scheduled to visit China next week, which the Foreign Office spokesperson says the visit will mark the conclusion of MOUs and agreements in diverse areas and help advance the agenda of bilateral cooperation.
World's richest man, Elon Musk, completes his $44 billion acquisition of Twitter, and his first move was to fire the social media company's top leadership, which he accused of misleading him over the number of spam accounts on the platform.
Rain washes out the ICC T20 World Cup matches between Afghanistan and Ireland and host Australia and England without a ball being bowled at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. All teams get 1 point each.
And now for the news in detail. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has assured to provide necessary funds to equip police with the latest gadgets and training techniques. Addressing the passing out parade of the 48th batch of ASP at National Police Academy in Islamabad, he asked the Interior Secretary to prepare projects in this regard. He stressed there should be a forensic lab in the capital city, besides its counter-terrorism department should be a role model for the whole country. The Prime Minister was appreciative of the role played by police in eradication of terrorism and restoration of peace in the country. He said the police personnel rendered their blood to protect the people from terrorist and criminal elements, and their sacrifices will not go in vain. The Prime Minister said, despite being blessed with all resources, Pakistan lags behind in development and we need to learn from past mistakes to secure future of our coming generations. Alluding to relations with Saudi Arabia and China, the Prime Minister said both the countries have always stood by Pakistan in difficult times. He said the present government has revived projects with Saudi Arabia, which was facing delays over the last few years now. He said Saudi Arabia will establish an oil refinery at a cost of $10 to $12 billion in Pakistan, and that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman will soon visit Pakistan. The Prime Minister said, "We are also trying to improve our relations with the United States." Speaking on the occasion, Commandant National Police Academy Allah Dinu Khwaja said, 24 officers, including 7 lady officers, have graduated. He said training of young officers has been designed to be academically challenging and physically rigorous.
Interior Minister Rana Sanaullah has made it clear that no mob would be allowed to challenge the state's writ, and every possible step would be taken to protect the life and the property of the people. Addressing a news conference in Islamabad, the Interior Minister said red zone is the red line and no mass gathering will be allowed in this area. Rana Sanaullah said we will continue exposing lies of PTI leaders. The Interior Minister said Azam Sawati blamed FIA in his press conference, as he said FIA arrested him and handed him to another party. He said 4-member medical board conducted the medical of Sawati after 4 hours of his arrest, and the medical board declared Azam Sawati fit. The Interior Minister said second medical was conducted on October the 15th and medical also conducted after 2-day remand.
Interior Minister Rana Sanaullah has said that the government would allow Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf to hold its gathering in the federal capital according to the Supreme Court of Pakistan and Islamabad High Court verdicts. Talking to the media after inaugurating the passport office at Lahore High Court Rawalpindi Bar, the minister rejected the impression of any governor rule in Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa provinces and said that the federal cabinet would decide the matter. Rana Sanaullah asked PTI Chief Imran Khan to dismiss Punjab government and take action against Anti-Corruption Punjab for lodging a fake case against him. Replying to a question about DG ISI and ISPR presser, he said that every institution has the right to apprise the public about any fake propaganda against their institution. He said that unconstitutional demands, fake propaganda and cipher drama hatched against the state institutions had been exposed in front of the public. To a question about Arshad Sharif's death inquiry, the Interior Minister said that the federal government had set up an inquiry commission which would present its report to the Interior Ministry.
Minister of Information and Broadcasting Mariam Aurangzeb has said that the nation has rejected the call for bloody march by refusing to become a slave to the foreign-funded person who violated the constitution. In her tweet in reaction to PTI leader Fawad Chaudhry's tweet, she said that Pakistan's youth could not become the protectors of the system of the Tosha Khana thief, Faragogi and Busha Bibi. The Information Minister maintained that the people have refused to become pawns in one person's lust for power.
Faisal Wada said that time and again he told his leader Imran Khan that few elements are misleading him to a direction other than his ideology he pursued for 26 years. In his latest tweet, the policy led to confrontation with institutions, caused loss to the country. Faisal Wada said he will soon disclose names of these elements as he discloses truth from inside the party.
The Federal Investigation Agency has summoned the former Foreign Minister and PTI Vice Chairman Shah Mahmood Qureshi on November the 1st. The FIA will hold inquiry into cipher controversy.
Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif presided over the review meeting regarding the rehabilitation of flood affectees. The Minister of Planning briefed regarding the post-disaster need assessment with the support of international development partners like the United Nations and the Asian Development Bank for the sustainable rehabilitation of the flood victims. The Prime Minister directed the relevant institutions to use the available resources on an emergency basis for the rehabilitation of the flood victims. Minister for Climate Change Sherry Rahman, Finance Minister Isaaq Dar, Planning Minister Ehsan Iqbal, National Coordinator in FRCC Lieutenant General Zafar Iqbal and Additional Secretary Nadeem Aslam Chaudhry attended the meeting.
Pakistan needs over $16 billion for rehabilitation and reconstruction in a resilient way to support the country's adaptation to the climate change and overall resilience of the country to future climate shocks. A new report of the Post-Disaster Needs Assessment launched in Islamabad estimates total damages to exceed $14.9 billion and total economic losses to reach about $15.2 billion. The report shows that housing, agriculture and livestock and transport and communication sectors suffered the most significant damage at $5.6 billion, $3.7 billion and $3.3 billion respectively. The report was launched by Minister for Planning, Development and Special Initiatives Ahsan Iqbal, Minister for Economic Affairs Division Ayaz Sadiq and Minister for Climate Change Shahri Rahman. Addressing the ceremony, Ahsan Iqbal asked the International Monetary Fund to soften the conditions on Pakistan government to utilize its own resources. He said as per the IMF condition, the government could not spend 40% of the allocation approved under Public Sector Development Programme before the last quarter. He said, I, as a planning minister of Pakistan government, request the IMF to review such harsh conditionality.
Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has thanked the U.S. government for announcing an additional $30 million in humanitarian assistance for flood victims. In a tweet, the Prime Minister said the challenges of food, health and shelter still persist in the flood-affected areas with the start of winter season. He said the world should promptly contribute to UN aid appeal to mitigate the impact of tragedy.
U.S. Ambassador to Pakistan Donald Bloom called on Finance Minister Ishaq Dar in Islamabad. The ambassador vowed to enhance bilateral relations between both the countries. Resident Coordinator of the United Nations in Pakistan, Julian Harnais, held a meeting with Minister of State Hina Rabbani Kar at Foreign Office in Islamabad. Minister of State discussed United Nations support for post-flood humanitarian rescue and relief efforts. Pakistan's comprehensive plan for rehabilitation and reconstruction in the wake of post-disaster needs assessment leading to an international pledging conference also discussed during the meeting.
Center on Integrated Rural Development for Asia and the Pacific has awarded as Azizul Haq Rural Development Award to Benazir Income Support Program. The award has been given to BISP for its outstanding performance in integrated rural development and poverty alleviation.
Pakistan has the capability to defend itself against any aggression or ill-designed moves. This was stated by Foreign Office spokesperson Asim Iftikhar while responding to a question regarding irresponsible remarks by Indian Defence Minister at his weekly news briefing in Islamabad. The spokesperson said New Delhi needs to allow the people of India illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir to exercise their free will in accordance with the UN Security Council resolutions to resolve this dispute with international legitimacy. Answering another question about Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's upcoming visit to China, Asim Iftikhar said this is a very significant visit as Pakistan Prime Minister will be amongst the first world leaders who will be visiting China after the 20th Congress of the Communist Party of China. He said broad range of areas of cooperation between the two countries as well as regional and global issues will come under discussion during the visit. He said Pakistan and China will continue to work together for the peace and security of the region. Regarding Islamabad's relations with London in view of the political changes taking place in the UK, the spokesperson said our ties continue to grow irrespective of who is in power. He said our bilateral ties will further improve under the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak.
Pakistan categorically rejected India's baseless propaganda directed against Pakistan at the meeting of UN Counter-Terrorism Committee hosted in Mumbai. According to Foreign Office, it is regrettable that India chose to misuse an important committee of the United Nations Security Council to mislead the international community about Pakistan's role in countering global terrorism. India's shenanigans also undermine the purposes and mandate of the committee and are reprehensible. Pakistan also urges the United Nations and the members of the Security Council to remain wary of India's propensity to engage in baseless and misleading propaganda in its blatant attempts to hijack serious international platforms in order to fulfill its own nefarious agenda.
Pakistan strongly rejects Indian Defence Minister's irresponsible remarks at a public event on Kashmir Black Day in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The Foreign Office spokesperson said that India had begun development work in IIOJK that would not stop till it reaches Gilgit-Baltistan is utterly absurd and ludicrous. He said it is also a well-documented fact that over 900,000 Indian occupation forces have been committing egregious human rights violations against innocent Kashmiris in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Spokesperson asserted that Pakistan has consistently called upon the international community to shoulder its responsibility with regards to Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir.
Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari's letter on worsening situation in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir has been delivered to the UN leadership by Pakistan's ambassador to the United Nations, Munir Akram. The ambassador met the President of UN General Assembly, CSB Ikorosi, the UN Security Council President, Michael Bayang, in the handing over the letter to them, which was later delivered to the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres. The Foreign Minister's letter will be released by the United Nations as a document of the Security Council and the General Assembly. Winding up the discussion on Kashmir dispute at a webinar earlier in the day, Munir Akram said Pakistan has kept the Security Council informed almost every month about the evolving situation in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. He said the Foreign Minister's letter is part of Pakistan's efforts to keep the world apprised of the evolving situation and India's continuing oppression in Kashmir.
Organization of Islamic Cooperation has reiterated its call on the international community to step up its efforts to resolve the issue of Jammu and Kashmir in accordance with the UN Security Council resolutions. In a series of tweets, the OIC General Secretariat urged India to halt and reverse its illegal steps to change internationally recognized disputed status of the territory and to alter the demographic structure of the territory. The OIC statement also demands respect for basic human rights to people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. It also reiterated its full solidarity with the people of IIOJK in their quest for their right to self-determination.
Speaker National Assembly Raja Parvez Ashraf has said that October 27th is the day of deprivation of Kashmiris of their right to self-determination. Speaking at an event in Islamabad, Raja Parvez Ashraf said Kashmiris are a brave and fearless nation who are fighting Indian occupation at the hands of 1 million Indian soldiers. Showing love for Kashmiris and commitment to support the Kashmiri freedom movement, the former Prime Minister said that we must salute the struggle, courage and bravery of Kashmiris who negated Indian occupation since the day one and continue to fight for freedom. Speaking on the occasion, Hanif Abbasi, Special Assistant to Prime Minister, paid tribute to the Kashmiris for the struggle of their right to self-determination. Addressing the event, Kashmiri Hurriyat leader Altaf Ahmed Bhatt said that India's history of oppressing Kashmiris forcefully, illegally and immorally is unprecedented in the world. He said the Modi government has illegally increased the number of Hindu seats in the assembly to impose fake and lawless draconian laws on Kashmiris.
A large number of Kashmiri Americans and their supporters and friends staged a protest demonstration in front of the Indian Embassy in Washington. On the occasion, President of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Sultan Mahmood Chowdhury, and other speakers drew the attention of the Biden administration to the grave human rights situation in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Sultan Mahmood Chowdhury warned that the deadly silence of the world powers over gruesome human rights abuses by the Indian forces in Kashmir had given India a virtual license to kill innocent Kashmiris. He warned that Kashmir is facing the worst kind of oppression unleashed by the Indian army. He said India is using its military might to crush the peaceful resistance movement of Kashmir, and this all is being done with impunity. Chairman World Forum for Peace and Justice, Dr. Ghulam Nabi Fai, highlighted that their peaceful protest was to draw the attention of the Biden administration to the situation in occupied Kashmir. He said Kashmiris are convinced that impartial observers would support the Kashmir cause based on universal principles.
Hundreds of Sikh pilgrims have started arriving at Wagah border to participate in the celebrations of Sakha Panja Sahib. Senior officials of the Evacuee Trust Board welcome the pilgrims. The Sikh pilgrims are being led by Siri Akhalat Sahab Supreme Leader Harpreet Singh. Evacuee Trust Property Board's Additional Secretary for Shrines Rana Shahid Salim, Deputy Secretary Saifullah Khokhar and Pakistan Sikh Parbandhak Committee Head Sardar Amir Singh welcomed the guests. Speaking to media, Additional Secretary Rana Shahid Salim said all transport, security, medical and food arrangements have been made for the pilgrims and that Pakistan government feels great honour to receive such guests on such an auspicious occasion. Salim said the Evacuee Trust Property Board will make sure that their visit is of joy and comfort. 288 visas have been issued to visiting Sikh pilgrims. The pilgrims will leave for Panja Sahib, Hasan Abdal, where the main ceremony of Sakha Panja will take place on 30th of October. Then they will stay overnight in Nankana Sahib, visit Gurdwara Dera Sahib on 1st of November, after which they will return to India through Wagah border.
Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has expressed grief over the loss of precious lives and ravages caused by a cyclone in Bangladesh. In a tweet, he extended his deepest condolences and most sincere sympathies to the government and the people of Bangladesh. He said, "Our thoughts and prayers are with the bereaved families."
Minister for Commerce and Investment Syed Naveed Qamar met with the Executive Vice President of EU Commission and EU Trade Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis in Brussels. During his meeting with Valdis, the minister underscored that GSP Plus facility had been mutually beneficial and played an important role in growth of the trade between the two sides. He reaffirmed Pakistan's commitment towards the effective implementation of GSP Plus related international conventions and hoped that the new scheme would continue to focus on its primary aims of sustainable development. The minister conveyed Pakistan's desire to diversify its export portfolio to the EU by creating linkages between trade and investment. While highlighting the importance of Pakistan-EU trade and investment relations, Vice President have also affirmed EU Commission's interest in further strengthening this partnership.
Federal Minister for Defence Production Mohammad Israt Tareen said that Pakistan is a peace-loving country, strictly believing in the policy of peaceful coexistence with all. These views he expressed in a meeting with the ambassador of Azerbaijan, Khazar Farhadov, who called on him in Islamabad. Minister welcomed the dignitary and highly appreciated the brotherly feelings of Azerbaijan government for Pakistan on all international forums, including OIC and the UN. Federal Minister extended invitation to Azerbaijan military leadership to participate in the Ideas 2022 of Pakistan to be held in Karachi in November this year. Ambassador of Azerbaijan appreciated efforts of the Ministry of Defence Production in enhancing ties between the two countries.
Ambassador of Kazakhstan to Pakistan, Yerzan Kistafin, called on advisor to Prime Minister Engineer Amir Muqam to discuss the matters of mutual interest. The advisor said that Pakistan attaches great significance to its relations with Kazakhstan, which mutually share the vision of regional cooperation. Engineer Amir Muqam said that Pakistan and Kazakhstan enjoy a friendly and brotherly relationship and a lot of potential exists to further enhance it between the two brotherly nations. He said that business communities of both the countries should promote trade and investment by exploring opportunities to further enhance trade relations.
8th convocation ceremony of Bahria University Health Sciences Campus was held in Karachi. Chief of Naval Staff and Pro-Chancellor Bahria University Admiral Muhammad Amjad Khan Niazi graced the occasion as the chief guest and awarded medals and merit certificates to the students having outstanding achievements in academics. A total of 262 graduates were conferred degrees of MPhil, MBBS, BDS, BS Nursing, DPT and MLT. Certificates of merit and medals were awarded to the position holders.
A state-of-the-art Centre of Excellence in Modern Technologies has been inaugurated in Hub, Balochistan to strengthen skills development for youth and teachers of the province. The Centre of Excellence aims to foster excellence in developing training programs for youth and train practitioners in technical vocational education and training sector. The Center of Excellence has been supported by TVET Sector Support Program and funded by the European Union, German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, and Norwegian government. It is implemented by GIZ in close collaboration with NFTC and TEFTAS.
Executive Director of Higher Education Commission, Dr. Shaista Suhail, has stressed the importance of continued investment in higher education and appreciated USAID's commitment to Pakistan's economic growth. Speaking at the inaugural session of a two-day training titled Advancing Leadership Capacities of Deans for Public Sector Universities, she said by strengthening our higher education system, we can build a cadre of expertise and leadership in all the relevant areas. Inaugural session was also attended by USAID's Director of Education Office, Ms. Anne Flaker, and USAID Senior Education Advisor, Ms. Asima Rahman.
Begging is one of the most prominent problems in Lahore, which has not been taken seriously by the current provincial government. Begging is a growing issue that gives rise to different main issues such as street crime, theft and robbery. More in this report by our correspondent Muhammad Junaid.
Poverty and overpopulation lead to several problems in developing nations. One such issue is begging. It has taken the shape of a full-fledged mafia in our country, especially in Lahore. Despite there being laws in place against begging and recent crackdowns, it's almost impossible to find a street without beggars. Nearly every traffic signal or market is flooded with panhandlers.
Constitution Islamic Republic of Pakistan that if somebody is disabled and is begging, and otherwise if somebody is begging, they be taken to task, and the beggars who are disabled, they should be taken care by the Protection Bureau, as there is a complete setup of law, ministry and the laws being regulated by the government of Punjab. So they were taken care and the petition was allowed, and even the contempt petition was filed by me, in which we made sure that these beggars were being taken to task and taken to the bureaus. But unfortunately, the government machinery failed, and again they are back on the roads. So the media has to expose them. The media has to make sure these constitutional petitions being enforced, and if not so, again we have the remedy before the courts of law.
Begging has become a form of organized crime where criminal networks force even children into begging. Rights activists question local administration's failure to effectively tackling the issue.
Begging has become one of the biggest grievances of Pakistan, in particular Punjab, and the criminal activities are becoming more intense, and children are getting kidnapped and they're being used by the mafias for their own benefit, for their own evil gains.
Citizens demand strict action be taken against those involved in running beggar mafias. There is also the need for imparting vocational skills to beggars in shelter homes. Reporting for PTV World, Muhammad Junaid.
Elon Musk took control of Twitter and fired its top executives in a deal that puts one of the leading platforms for global discourse in the hands of the world's richest man. Following the takeover, Musk tweeted that the bird is freed, referencing to the company's iconic avian logo. According to US media, Musk wasted no time sacking Chief Executive Parag Agrawal as well as the company's Chief Financial Officer and its Head of Safety. Agrawal previously went to the court to hold the Tesla chief to the terms of a deal he had tried to escape. The takeover came hours before the court-appointed deadline for Musk to seal his on-again, off-again deal to purchase the social media network. Elon Musk tweeted earlier in the day that he was buying Twitter because it is important to the future of civilization to have a common digital town square where a wide range of beliefs can be debated in a healthy manner. Twitter did not immediately reply to a request for comment on the departure of its top executives, but the platform's co-founder, Biz Stone, thanked the trio, Agarwal, Ned Segal and Vijaya Gade, for their collective contribution to Twitter. Earlier, we spoke to Osama Khilji, digital rights expert, about the future of Twitter under Elon Musk. Let's take a listen.
It's a very interesting development as we are witnessing because we saw his conversations, especially on Twitter, where he was criticizing a lot on the divisive policies or algorithms of the Twitter, where he was not very happy with the policies that the previous executives, especially the CEO Agarwal and the Gadi, their policy officer, they were the way they were running this platform, because their algorithms were so divisive and spreading hate speech on this platform. And
Amid Russia's wide-ranging missile barrage on Ukraine and nuclear saber-rattling, the war in Ukraine is entering dangerous phase. Russian President Vladimir Putin raised alarm that world faces the most dangerous decade since World War II, as the Western elites scramble to prevent the inevitable crumbling of the global dominance of the US and its allies.
Amid Russia's wide-ranging missile barrage on Ukraine and nuclear saber-rattling, the war in Ukraine is entering dangerous phase. Russian President Vladimir Putin raised alarm that world faces the most dangerous decade since World War II, as Western elites scramble to prevent the inevitable crumbling of the global dominance of United States and its allies. Joe Biden, the President of United States, expressed skepticism about Putin's comment that he had no intention of using a nuclear weapon in Ukraine. If he has no intention, why does he keep talking about it? Biden said in an interview with News Nation. The U.S. is reportedly preparing a new $275 million package of military assistance for Ukraine to bolster its counteroffensive against Russian forces. Russian Foreign Ministry warned that Russia will retaliate if its state and citizens' assets are confiscated by the European Union. Moscow also said the provisions of Black Sea grain deal to ease Russian agricultural and fertilizer exports were not being met, adding that it was yet to decide whether the agreement should be extended. Russia sent troops into Ukraine on February 24th, triggering the biggest showdown with the West since 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis in the depths of the Cold War, when the Soviet Union and US came closest to nuclear war.
Two Palestinians were martyred by Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank. The Palestinian Health Ministry said the death of Imad Abu Rashid, who was killed by the Israeli occupation after being shot in the abdomen, chest and head. In a later statement, it announced the death of Ramzi Sami Zabara from a critical wound by the occupation bullets in heart in Nablus. The incident is the latest in a deadly week in Nablus, where Israeli forces have conducted regular raids and imposed tight restrictions on movement.
Landslides and flooding killed 31 people as heavy rain from an approaching storm lashed the southern Philippines. And officials said torrents of rainwater unleashed flash floods laden with uprooted trees, rocks and mud overnight in mainly rural communities around waterlogged city of Cotabato. 7 people were missing. He said the water started entering the houses before dawn. This is the first time it happened to us. Rescue teams and rubber boats had to pluck some residents from the rooftops.
The International Monetary Fund cut Asia's economic forecast as global monetary tightening, rising inflation blamed on the war in Ukraine, and China's sharp slowdown dampened the region's recovery prospects. Addressing a news conference in Tokyo, Director of the IMF's Asia and Pacific Department, Krishna Srinivasan, said, compared with the April World Economic Outlook, we have downgraded our forecast for growth in Asia in the Pacific by 0.9 percentage points in 2022 and 0.8 percentage points in 2023. The fund said among the biggest headwinds is China's rapid and broad-based economic slowdown blamed on strict COVID-19 lockdowns and its worsening property woes. The IMF also said in its Asia-Pacific Regional Economic Outlook report that while inflation in Asia remains subdued compared with other regions, most central banks must continue raising interest rates to ensure inflation expectations do not become de-anchored.
Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida announced $260 billion in stimulus spending to tackle inflation after the cabinet approved an extra budget to partly fund the relief measures. Kishida told reporters in Tokyo the government hopes that 39 trillion yen in fiscal spending will rise to 72 trillion yen when private sector investments are taken into account. Prices are rising in Japan at their fastest rate in 8 years, although the 3% inflation rate remains well below the sky-high levels seen in the US and elsewhere.
North Korea fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles, the latest in a blitz of launches that Washington and Seoul have warned could culminate in Kim Jong-un conducting another nuclear test. South Korea's military said it had detected 2 ballistic missiles fired from Gangwon. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff said in a statement that our military has increased monitoring and surveillance and is maintaining a full readiness posture in close coordination with the U.S. The launch comes as South Korea and the U.S. conclude 12 days of amphibious naval joint military drills and just ahead of the Monday start of major combined air drills that will involve more than 200 U.S. and South Korean fighter jets.
On to Iraq now, where the lawmakers approved a new government ending over a year of deadlock but still faces many challenges. Prime Minister Mohammad Shia al-Sudani, who previously served as Iraq's Human Rights Minister as well as Minister for Labour and Social Affairs, will head the new government. He picks for 21 ministries passed during a parliament vote on the cabinet. Thursday's parliament session comes a year after an election which Muqtada al-Sadr was the biggest winner but failed to rally support to form a government.
Production of the first circulating British coins featuring an image of King Charles III began at the Royal Mint facilities in Wales. The first coin bearing a portrait of King Charles is a memorial 50 pence honouring Queen Elizabeth II, which will go into public circulation in December. The King Charles effigy on the coin was created by British sculptor Martin Jennings. In keeping with tradition, the portrait of Charles faces in the opposite direction of that of his mother.
In Spain, dozens of wildfires have erupted after having a very dry summer and autumn. Authorities said there was not enough rain, whereas very high temperatures and dry winds fueled dry vegetation. Spain experienced unusually warm weather, with some places set to surpass the 30 degrees centigrade mark, and the National Weather Agency predicting that it could be hottest October since records began. The National Weather Agency said every day of the month except October the 1st had been warmer than the usual temperature experienced at this time of the year.
For the last 77 years, Piet Mondrian's famous artwork, New York City 1, has been hanging upside down. It will probably remain an everlasting mystery how it came to that, said curator of an upcoming Mondrian exhibition, Susan Meyer-Buser, in Dusseldorf. She was also one of the one to discover that the artwork has been presented incorrectly through all these years. Meyer-Buser found an old photo of Mondrian's studio where New York City 1 has shown the other way around from the usual one. So she turned a cardboard copy of the artwork upside down and had a look. Yet the artwork is not going to be presented in the newly discovered intended way at the upcoming Mondrian Evolution exhibition in Dusseldorf, as it is not possible due to conservation reasons.
North Korea adopted augmented reality mirror at a fashion exhibition in Pyongyang to simulate new style without trying on actual dresses. Visitors were seen trying on various types of dresses on AR mirror. About 540 units across the country joined the Women's Clothes Exhibition 2022 at the Three Revolution Exhibition House in Pyongyang and displayed various types of fashion items for women in their 30s and 40s.
On to the world of sports now, starting off with cricket, where rains continue to disrupt T20 World Cup matches, as today's both matches have been abandoned without a ball being bowled at the MCG. A highly anticipated clash between Australia and England in Melbourne was abandoned without a ball being bowled because of rain, leaving their group too close to call. It was the second match of the day after Ireland versus Afghanistan to be washed out at the MCG, and means all four sides take a point each in their hunt for a place in the semi-finals. New Zealand lead the Group 1 on 3 points, the same as England, Ireland and Australia, but the Black Caps have a better net run rate and have played a game less. Sri Lanka and Afghanistan have 2 points. The top two will reach the semi-finals. 4 matches have been rained out of the tournament in Australia. Moving on to some tennis now. Spain's Roberto Bautista Agut knocked out Britain Andy Murray at the second round of the Swiss indoors Basel ATP 500 event at the setup, a quarter-final clash with the home favourite Stan Wawrinka. Bautista Agut beat Murray 6-3 and 6-2, while the Swiss Wawrinka beat American Brandon Nakashima 6-4, 5-7 and 6-4 to secure his place in the last 8. Elsewhere, Canada's Felix Auger-Aliassime cruised through with a 6-1 and 6-0 win over Serbia's Miomir Kecmanovic and Denmark's Holger Rune, both and beat Frenchman Hugo Humbert by 6-4 and 6-2. More tennis now. Italian Yannick Sinner and Croat-born Coric won their respective second-round matches at the Erste Bank Open in Vienna to secure spots in the quarterfinals. Sinner, who beat Argentine Francisco Carandulo 7-5 and 6-3, will play the tournament's top seed Daniil Medvedev after the Russian eliminated Austria's Dominic Thiem earlier in the day. Coric, who beat Greek Stefanos Tsitsipas 4-6, 6-4 and 7-6, will play Poland's Hubert Hurkacz in the quarterfinals. Now the 2023 Tour de France riders are set to a grueling final block of racing on a treacherous course that will go through all 5 mountain ranges. With a start from Bilbao, Spain, the peloton will quickly be in the Pyrenees with a mountaintop finish at the iconic Col du Tourmalet before heading to the massive Central to end up at the top of the Puy de Dôme for the first time since 1988. The Jura and the Alps will feature 3 consecutive mountain treks before a rest day, a short but brutal individual time trial, and a ride to Courchevel with 5,100 meters of altitude gain. The tour might be then decided in the penultimate stage at the Markenstern in the Vosges, where the women's tour ended up last year. With only 22 kilometers of time trialing, the pure climbers will obviously be favoured. In 2022, then defending champion Tadej Pogačar cracked in the ascent to the Col du Granon after the team of eventual winner Jonas Vingegaard threw everything at the Slovenian in a vintage stage, arguably the most spectacular in the century. There will be several opportunities for sprinters to shine aside from the traditional finish of the Champs-Élysées in Paris, with stages ending in Bordeaux, Poligny and Nogaro, with Mark Cavendish's presence being the biggest question mark as the Briton looks to break the record of 34 stage wins he shares with Belgian great Eddy Merckx. The tour will start on July the 1st with its second grand depart from the Basque Country after setting off to the San Sebastian in 1992. Mainly dry weather is expected in most parts of the country, while cold in northern areas during the next 24 hours. According to Met Office, continental air is prevailing over most parts of the country. Well, that's all from my side. Over to Jawad and Fiza now.
And that is all for now. For more details and live streaming, log on to our website world.ptv.com.pk. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching.